Jerusalem.
Israelis and Palestinians.
Temple Mount Al-Aqsa Mosque is always in the news. Why? We're gonna find out. Behind me you can see the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount, known as Abeit in Hebrew or the Haram es-Sharif Al-Aqsa compound in Arabic, is a religious site in Jerusalem holy to Jews, Muslims and Christians. Located in the Old City, today it features two iconic landmarks of Jerusalem, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Due to its importance in Judaism and Islam, it galvanizes Israeli and Palestinian society like no other issue. Often described in the media as a flashpoint religious site due to periodic rioting and violence, it is the tinderbox that has sparked almost every round of fighting in recent memory between Israel and the Palestinians. The Temple Mount is the holiest place in Judaism, the location of the two now destroyed ancient temples known in Hebrew as the Beit HaMikdash. Jewish tradition states that the world was created from the foundation stone located inside the Dome of the Rock. According to tradition, it is also the spot where Abraham bound Isaac, and today is the place towards which Jews all over the world turn during prayer. In Islam, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site behind Mecca and Medina. It was the first Qibla or direction of prayer in Islam before being superseded by the Kaaba in Mecca, and according to Islamic tradition was the location where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven as part of his night journey. The first temple was built by Solomon, king of Israel, in the year 957 BCE. After the kingdom split around the year 930 BCE, the Beit HaMikdash became the central focus of religious life in the southern kingdom of Judah, Yehudah in Hebrew. It was destroyed along with the rest of the city by the Babylonian conquest of 587 BCE, and the Jewish residents were exiled to Babylon, today's Iraq. Babylon was soon overrun by the Persians, and 70 years later the Persian king Cyrus the Great granted the Jewish exiles permission to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. Known as the second Beit HaMikdash, it was built in the year 516 BCE. During the reign of Judean king Herod the Great in the year 20 BCE, the surrounding area was flattened and filled in to create the spacious plaza that exists today, upon which the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock sit. As part of the construction, 4 large retaining walls were built around the plaza. As everything else was destroyed over time, the western retaining wall became a key Jewish prayer site due to its symbolism as one of the remnants of the temple, and is known today as HaKotel HaMa'aravi, the Western or Wailing Wall. The second temple stood for nearly 600 years until its destruction by the Romans in the year 70 CE. With the rise of Islam in the 7th century, Jerusalem came under Muslim control. During the Umayyad Muslim Caliphate in 691 CE, Caliph Abd al-Malik constructed on the Temple Mount the Qubat as-Sakha, or Dome of the Rock, along with Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, the Al-Aqsa Mosque on its southern end. The mosque is also referred to as the Al-Qibli Mosque, while Al-Aqsa can refer to the entire Temple Mount compound. Another name for the entire compound in Arabic is Al-Haram as-Sharif, or the Noble Sanctuary. One of the Arabic names for Jerusalem is Beit al-Maqdisi, which is the Arabicized version for the Hebrew name of the temple, Beit HaMikdash. The Dome of the Rock is actually not a mosque. It's a shrine, built over a rock. Which rock? According to tradition, it's a foundation stone. Jerusalem remained mostly under Islamic control for over 1,200 years under a succession of empires and caliphates until the Ottoman Empire was defeated by the British in World War I. During this time, the Temple Mount was administered by a series of Islamic religious trusts, known as the Waqf. The British Mandate of Palestine ended in 1948 and was to be replaced by one Jewish and one Arab state as per the 1947 UN partition plan. Under the plan, Jerusalem was to become an international city administered by the UN. However, the local Arab population rejected the plan, and the surrounding Arab countries invaded the newly formed Jewish state, which called itself Israel.
על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל.
Israel repelled the attack, and by war's end, control of Jerusalem was split between Israel, which held the western half of the city, and Jordan, which controlled the eastern half of the city, including the major holy sites such as the Temple Mount and the Western Wall. During this time, Jordanian authorities banned Jewish visitors from visiting these sites. In 1967, Jordan declared war on Israel and began shelling the Jewish neighborhoods of Jerusalem. In what became known as the Six-Day War, Israel counterattacked and defeated the Jordanians, bringing the eastern side of the city along with the Temple Mount under Israeli control. Despite the significance of the Temple Mount in Judaism, Israel's leadership decided to graciously return administrative control of the Temple Mount to the Waqf. The Waqf administers the mount to this day and is supported and financed by Jordanian authorities. Since then, Israel has committed to maintaining the status quo at the Temple Mount, meaning Muslims of any nationality enjoy unrestricted access for prayers, while all non-Muslims, including Jews, Jewish Israelis and tourists, are forbidden from entering the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, and are banned from praying at the site. Israel maintains the security perimeter at the entrance to the site, while the Waqf administers the Temple Mount itself. While Israel police guard the entrances, on a routine basis they escort visiting non-Muslim groups in the plaza, among other things to ensure that non-Muslim visitors do not pray at the site. Due to the Temple Mount's sensitivity, tensions have spiraled in the last 25 years. In 1996, the Waqf initiated an unauthorized expansion project underneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque, known as the El Marwani Mosque. During the construction, archaeological remains dating to the temple period were excavated without archaeological supervision and damaged. A total of 300 truckloads of topsoil were removed by the Waqf from the Temple Mount and dumped in the valley below. In the year 2000, Israeli opposition leader Ariel Sharon visited the mount, sparking protests by Palestinians that, among other reasons, eventually spiraled into the Second Intifada. In 2017, 3 Muslim Arab citizens of Israel entered the site armed with guns and opened fire on Israeli police guarding the perimeter to the site, killing 2 officers. In response, Israel installed metal detectors at the entrance to the plaza in order to prevent weapons from being smuggled onto the site. This was met with mass protest by Palestinians who claimed that this was an attempt by Israel to increase its control. Following a number of fatal terror attacks and a diplomatic crisis with Jordan, Israel folded and removed the metal detectors. In mid-2021, the Temple Mount featured another round of violence as Palestinians hoarded rocks, fireworks and Molotov cocktails in the Al-Aqsa Mosque in order to attack Israeli police, seemingly as an escalation to the property dispute in Sheikh Jarrah. Israeli police suppressed the riot, entering the Al-Aqsa Mosque to stop the violence. The event triggered an 11-day mini-war between Israel and the Palestinian terror group Hamas in Gaza, after Hamas fired rockets at Jerusalem. For Israelis, the Temple Mount symbolizes the reunification of Jerusalem and its place as Israel's capital city. For Orthodox Jews, part of the religious vision of Messianic times includes a third temple rebuilt on the Temple Mount that will miraculously descend from heaven. Palestinian groups consider Jewish claims to the Temple Mount illegitimate and view the Al-Aqsa Mosque as a stronghold and a symbol for their cause. This place holds a lot of tension on different levels. The inequality of who can visit and pray from the standpoint of basic human freedoms, the religious strains because of what this site represents, and the political dimension within the Israeli-Palestinian conflict all layer up to create the Temple Mount that we have today.